Now I want to continue talking about graphing and discuss specifically if they give us an equation, how can we translate that equation into a line on the coordinate plane? So I have, for example, the equation here y equals x plus 2. There are actually 3 different ways I can graph this line. All 3 ways will give me the exact same line. It's just different ways to get to the same place. It's like going to your house, you can take 3 different roads, but they will all get you to the same location. Today, right now in this video, I'm going to talk about the first way. In the next video, I will talk about the second way. And then in the third video, I will talk about the third way. The first way is by simply making what we call a table of ordered pairs. You might remember from my last video, we talked about how to figure out if an ordered pair is a solution. We're going to find several different ordered pairs that are solutions to this equation. We're going to graph them on my coordinate plane, and then we're going to connect the dots to make a line. So I have y equals x plus 2. So I'm going to make a box, and I'm going to choose 3 numbers for x. Now you can choose any numbers you want to choose. Any numbers will work. But let me give you some suggestions that will make your life easier. I would always start by choosing 0 as your first number. That is one of the easiest numbers to solve for. That would be your first number. Then I would choose a negative number. I would choose a negative number that's not too big or too small. So normally a number between 0 and -5 is a good number to choose. And then I would choose a positive number, again, not too big or not too small. I'm going to choose the number 2 and -2. Now that I have my 3 x's, I'm going to plug those into the equation and figure out what y goes with those x's, just like when we talked about functions and relations. So when x is 2, what is y? Well, since 2 plus 2 equals 4, then y is 4. When x is 0, what is y? Well, since 0 plus 2 is 2, y is 2. How about when x is -2? Well, -2 plus 2, when I add the opposite of a number, I always get 0. I also know if I have different signs, I subtract. 2 minus 2 is 0, so I get 0. Now I have 3 points. Now I have to plot those 3 ordered pairs on my graph. So I'm going to get rid of the ones I've already done so we don't get confused. And I'm going to plot these 3. So 2, 4, remember, x, right or left. The first number is always right or left. If it's positive, I go right. I start at the origin, 0, 0, where my 2 axes cross. And I'm going to go to the right 2. Then my y is 4. That's up or down. Positive is up. So from this point, I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to put a point right there. So I counted 2 lines over and then 4 lines up. That is 0.24. 0, 2. Well, if x is 0, that means I don't go left or right. Remember, that means it's going to be on my y-axis because I didn't go left or right. Since y is positive 2, starting at this origin, I don't go left or right. I just go up 1 line, 2 lines. Right there on that corner, on that line, is my second point. Finally, x -2. So starting at my origin, I'm going to go to the left 2 lines. Since y is 0, I don't go up or down, so it's going to be right on the x-axis. Now I'm going to take my ruler. Make sure you use a ruler. If you do not use a ruler, your line will not be straight and your answer will not be correct. So I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to put it on those 3 dots and I'm going to connect those 3 dots. Make sure you go all the way to the corners of your graph. Don't stop at the points. Keep going through and then put arrows. What you have just done is you have showed that every single point on this line is a solution to my original equation, y equals x plus 2. So for example, point 1, 3 is on this line. Is that a solution? Does 1 plus 2 equal 3? Yes. Another point that is on this line, for example, is negative 1, 1. Negative 1 plus 2, does that equal 1? Yes. I could do that for every point all the way up into infinity. If I kept on going to 100, it would go all the way up to 102, and that point would be on the line. If I went to negative 100, it would go down to negative 98, and that point would be on the line. This line is a physical, visual representation of the equation y equals x plus 2. Every point on this line is a solution to y equals x plus 2. Now let's say I did something wrong, and let's say when I graphed negative 2, 0, instead of going negative 2, 0, I went down and I thought this was my point. Well, you notice when I try to connect those dots, it's not going to make a straight line. I know it is incorrect if it does not make a straight line. It must make a straight line. What happens if I just have one letter? Let's say, for example, I have y equals 2. If I have y equals 2, what that means is no matter what x is, y will always be 2. So here is y2. That means if x is 0, y is 2. If x is 1, y is 2. If x is 2, y is 2. If y is always 2, I'm going to end up with a horizontal line, pardon my sloppiness, going through positive 2. So anytime you have y equals something, it's always going to be a right to left line, a horizontal line going through that number on the y-axis. How about if I have x equals negative 2? Well, that means no matter what y is, x is always negative 2. If x is always negative 2, that means I have a vertical line going through my x-axis. So this would be x equals negative 2. This would be y equals positive 2. If there is just one variable, only x or only y, if it is only y, it is always going to be going horizontally, left and right, through that number on the y-axis. If it's x equals a number, it's always going to be vertical, up and down, going through that number on the x-axis. Because what this means is y will always be 2. Every single point, y is 2. And x will always be negative 2. Every single point is negative 2. So if there's only one letter, it's either horizontal or vertical. So the first way we can graph is by making a table, choosing 3 different numbers. Usually it's easiest to choose 0 as your first number, and then a positive and a negative number, not too big, not too small. Plug them into your equation to figure out what y is. Put those 3 numbers on your graph, and then connect the dots with a ruler, making sure you use arrows and making sure you go through all the way, showing that this will continue infinitely in both directions as a representation of all the possible solutions for that equation. What about if I have a fraction being multiplied by my x? Let's say, for example, my equation is y equals negative 1/3 x plus 3. Well, like always, my first number I still want to choose is 0. But for my other numbers, I want to choose a number that will cancel out my fraction. So when I multiply by negative 1/3, I won't have a fraction anymore. How do I do that? Well, choose the number that is on the bottom of the fraction. So I'm going to do, since 3 is on the bottom, I'm going to do 3 and negative 3. Now watch what happens. Let's start with 0. 0 times negative 1/3, 0 times anything, the zero property of multiplication says 0 times anything equals 0. 0 plus 3 is 3. How about 3? How about if I replace this with 3? So negative 1/3 times 3. Remember, I can put 3 over 1. What's going to happen? My 3 and 3 are going to cancel, leaving me with negative 1 times negative 1, which is just negative 1. How about negative 3? Well, my 3's still cancel, but now I have negative 1 times negative 1. That's positive 1. What would have happened if I would have chose a different number like 2? Well, if I have negative 1/3 times 2, that's going to give me, remember I multiply the top and the bottom, negative 2/3 plus 3. Now I'm going to have a fraction. Fractions are much more difficult to graph and much more difficult to deal with. I don't want fractions. Fractions are hard. Please, don't make your life hard. If you are graphing with ordered pairs and you have a fraction being multiplied by x, choose the bottom number, the denominator of your fraction, multiply by the negative and the positive of that, and that will get rid of your denominator, leaving you with no fractions. Much easier, much better. So the first way to graph is by using ordered pairs. You choose 3 numbers. I would recommend choosing 0 and then a negative and a positive number. For each number, plug in that number for x, solve for y. Once you have 3 ordered pairs, graph them, connect the dots with the ruler, and you have your line. Thank you.